there's, I guess I'm showing my stripes here, but I hear a lot of people talk about make America great again, and there's an argument that we don't build as much as we did. Our roads are not as good as they used to be, et cetera. But if you look back at periods in our country's history when we were investing in infrastructure and we were investing in what some might call social handouts, but others might call social safety nets, which we all appreciate, like Social Security, Medicare. We had tax rates that were far, far higher. Is there a danger that the continual expectation that taxes must continue to get lower and lower and lower will put us in a position as a country where we aren't able to pay for even the most basic things like fixing potholes on interstates?
Well, this president is also and has been very vocal about fixing our infrastructure. I think that that's a bipartisan effort. He has.
Well, he's been vocal about it, but I don't know that he's done it.
When we're talking about things, I mean, USMCA, that's an easy thing that should be bipartisan, and that's being stalled because of the Democrats. So if we want to go back and forth, Trump's not doing this, not doing that, it's not getting a lot of help. He has brought up infrastructure. That's been a discussion that was had, and then we went into the whole immigration and the shutdown, and then that all got delayed, and now we're in another witch hunt. So everything's being delayed.
Listen, and I don't want anybody to respond to what I'm about to say because I'm not saying this for an applause or anything, but I will make the point that I've noticed that there's a lot of Democrats' fault that comes from this side, and I don't hear as much blame coming from this side of the room. And so I wonder if it's possible to talk about what the Republican Party, I said I don't want you to respond, trust me. It's not, I'm not coming, but I'm just asking constructively, is there a way to make the arguments?
Way too much stuff about Clay and way too much trying to interject and trying to become, part of this thing too. Clay, nobody gives a crap about you moderating this debate. They didn't come here to see Clay Aiken filibuster and sort of, show your colors, show your stripes. We know you're a leftist. We know you're a Marxist, socialist, progressive, moderate, whatever the hell you want to call yourself. We know all that about you, all right? We don't need to hear you trying to, play 2-on-1, against Tomi Lahren. That's not what we're talking about, okay? We're just basically just come up with a simple follow-up, ask a pertinent question, and then let the ladies give their answers. That's what we're talking about.
For what's good in the president's policy without blaming it always on the Democrats doing something.
It would be nice if we could go through a day without them blaming Trump for everything.
I'm not going to disagree with that. I'm not going to disagree with that.
So, I mean, when we're talking about, I think that, the Democrats get unfair scrutiny, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to call bullshit on that because our president can't go.
I'm talking about this stage right here.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I will say, I'm not saying everything is the Democrats' fault. I'm saying there are areas of bipartisanship that we could work together on. I think infrastructure is one of them. I think USMCA is another one. There are areas of bipartisanship. When you're talking about the stock market, I don't fully disagree with you on that. I understand that that's a house of cards. I also understand that Medicare and Social Security is a house of cards. There are a lot of things that need to be addressed, and it's not going to be one really smart Republican or one really smart Democrat that's going to...
I will say something here, Tommy. We don't need to address the stock market. It's not a house of cards. It is built on the economic structure of buying and selling. And people have the right to do what they want. Now, if someone's manipulating that, that's a whole different story. But we're not talking about stock market manipulation. That's a whole different thing, right? So don't get into the same boat as Ana in terms of, the stock market being a house of cards. Yes, when bubbles occur, when they're being caused by people that are doing unscrupulous things like they did before with the stock market collapse previously, and there was this mortgage-backed securities and those things, that was caused by what? It wasn't because of the stock market. It was because what people were trying to do was manipulate things within the stock market. It's a whole different thing than calling the stock market a house of cards.
To do it, it's going to be consensus, and I think that that's maybe where we can take our tone down and decide we have a Congress that's not acting in the interest of the American people on both sides.
True. Why are we not able to work on these things that we all say we agree on, like infrastructure? What do you think is and I'll come to you for an answer on that too. But what do you think is the reason that's not possible? It's going to be tough.
Well, I mean, that is tough to answer, and we live in a very polarized climate, and I think it's driven by the type of rhetoric that we're hearing in the executive branch, to be quite honest. But I will say one thing. You know, Trump had an opportunity to get things done without having to worry about bipartisanship in the first 2 years of his presidency.
And that's on Republicans.
Why didn't he build the wall then?
That's what we asked the...
It's because why did he ask? Well, he's being fought against by the rhinos, by the establishment. They don't want to do what President Trump wants to do. And President Trump probably realized, hey, guess what? This isn't like running a company where you make a decision, everybody has to follow that decision, and you can make it, and that's it. Here, he makes a decision. It's got to go through the State Department. It's got to go through policymakers. It's got to go through Congress. It's got to go through rhinos. It's got to go through Democrats. It's got to go through socialists, Marxists. Everybody wants their piece in it. And then they want to see what can they do to that legislation so that their constituents or their people that they've owed favors to and whatever can get something out of it. And if they can't, put stuff into it. And by the time it really comes back, it's like, what the hell? I said yes. I said this. And you gave me that.
Rhinos every single day, and I press them on every single day. Trust me. Trust me. I'm with you on that one. If we can agree on something, is that I'm not happy with a lot of the establishment
So
Republicans
then maybe it's
either.
not just Democrats' fault right now still.
No, it's absolutely not. There's a lot of Republicans who are going to have hell to pay. I've never been someone who's just been a cheerleader.
Like the sky is going to open up. We agreed on something up here on the stage.
I've never been a cheerleader for the establishment Republicans.
What is an establishment Republican? What does that mean? Because the Democrats say it too. Establishment Democrats, especially when we're in this primary, establishment Republicans. It just sounds to me, as if I'm trying to be nonpartisan, it just sounds to me like Republicans don't like anyone who's not far enough right for them, and Democrats don't like anyone who's not far enough left for them. So what does establishment mean?
I want to change the framing of that question a little bit, because I don't think it's about, oh, we don't support someone who's not left enough or right enough. I think that it's all about rejecting corporatism, right? So, and corruption, really. Because we want lawmakers who actually are good faith actors and are driven by their ideology, driven by their principles and their values. On both the left and the right, our entire system's been hijacked by corporate interests, by legalized bribery. And so none of these lawmakers really represent us unless they reject that money. And honestly, it's very rare to find anyone who's willing to reject it. That's why someone like Bernie Sanders was able to start a movement. Because he said, no corporate PAC money, no big donors. I'm only going to accept small dollar donations. And he's been so principled. You go back 20 years and he's been preaching the same thing. He believes in what he says, and that's why he's so appealing.
Do you think that?
Well, Bernie Sanders, a multi-millionaire with principles. 3 homes, 15 million, 5 or 6 boats, who knows how many cars, book deals for him and his wife out the yazoo, tons of money raised. He's such a poor person, this elite, right? Bernie Sanders. Hey, just his first and last initials, BS, ought to tell you all you need to know about Bernie the BS Sanders.
That's the same definition on the Republican side?
No, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree with that. I think that it's the populist movement on both sides, although it's different. That's why you see the rise of Bernie Sanders. That's why you saw the rise of Donald Trump. And I do think that that's more in the people's interest. We have different ways of going about it, but it is that core populist movement. And that's when we both say we're not happy with the establishment. It's because they do put their own interests, their own after office interests, their own current office interests, the dollar signs ahead of the American people. And that's a frustration on both sides. Maybe we can agree on that.
Well, who would be establishment characters in your mind? You don't even have, if you're
our
willing.
good friend Pierre Delecto is one.
Mitt Romney, okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Of course, I'm not a fan many times of Lindsey Graham. I've been very vocal in my opposition to Lindsey Graham. I'm not fully supportive of Mitch McConnell. There are several, and there are leaders in the Republican Party that I don't feel like support this president, but more than that, I don't feel like necessarily support the hardworking conservatives in this country that elected them. And I'm sure she has the same on her side of the aisle.
Oh, definitely. One of the things that Hillary Clinton got a lot of criticism for on the left was her ties to corporate interests. And I think that, for establishment politicians who are paying attention and actually care about these types of discussions, they need to understand that people are paying attention. People are looking into what influences their campaigns and why they push for the types of policies they push for. And if there's a lot of corporate influence, it's very unlikely that these politicians are going to look out for the best interests for the average American or of the average American.
What do you think the biggest threat for young people in this country is right now?
Socialism. Yeah, I do.
Do you feel like socialism is, define that for me though.
That socialism is taking hold? Yes, I absolutely.
Well, define what you mean by socialism taking, what defines socialism? Because I think we hear it thrown around a lot, but there are, I think, maybe I'm wrong, I think there are differing opinions on exactly what people are talking about. Socialism in Venezuela is different than socialism in Bolivia, is different than what some people might call socialism in Norway and Sweden. They all have aspects of it. Canada even does too. But what is the socialism that you're most afraid of?
So, well, like when you hear Bernie Sanders, which many of you are a fan of, but when you hear him on stage saying the government's going to give you a job, the government's going to give you free health care, the government's going to give you free college, you work for the government, you live by the government.
Do you not think that's a little hyperbole though? I mean, he said the government's going to give you a job,
no,
the
federal
government's
jobs
going to give
program.
you a...
He absolutely did.
But
he absolutely did.
It's about making things available.
Kind of like the New Deal,
Is it not about making things available to people? Is it not about making college available and accessible to people versus handing everyone
who's going to pay for it?
Handing everyone college tuition?
You live in the United States of America. You've been handed an opportunity that most people don't have. First and foremost.
I won't disagree with that, but I was handed and I'm not really, I'm trying to disappear, but I'm not, very tough for me, but I was handed an elementary school education for free and a middle school and a high school education for free. Why am I not entitled to college?
But Clay Aiken is really getting on my freaking nerves. I mean, he is really, really, really getting on my freaking nerves. He's like a bad toothache that just does not go away. The pain is excruciatingly bad. Oh my God, it's like this was supposed to be 1 against 1, Ana versus Tomi. It wasn't Tomi and Clay Ana and Clay versus Tomi. And I know Tomi can handle it, but it's like Clay. If we talked to how many times you've interrupted to basically go back and either get clarification or pontificate on another question to ask Tomi, it's been an unbelievably more so going against Tomi than it has been against Ana. And I don't want you to go against any of them. Just stay in the freaking background. Oh my God. It's getting so annoying.
College education for free. What makes that socialism, but free high school education is not socialism?
Who made that decision in this country that we were going up until high school? And if we want to talk about
but could we not make the decision that we're going through college?
Who's going to pay for it?
College used to be free in America. Public colleges used to be free in America. They were properly funded and they were free. I'm talking about public colleges. They used to be free in America. All the things that Bernie Sanders is campaigning on are things that Americans used to have, but they were taken away from us just to give the top 1% the giant tax cuts that they're enjoying today. So it's not like what he's proposing is radical. What he's proposing are policies that used to make America great, policies that gave Americans opportunities to lift themselves up by the bootstraps and actually create the type of lives that they deserve if they work hard enough for it. The type of lives that my family was able to accomplish, through all the hard work, the sweat, the tears. I mean, I could never do what my parents did today because they had certain opportunities that we just don't have anymore. Free education, I'm talking about college education, is like a fantasy now. And it's not a radical idea considering the fact that we used to have it.
I want to give you an opportunity to expand on it.
All right. Everything was going great. I think this was the session here, part 4, where there was some agreement upon, and they espoused their views in terms of agreeing. They agreed about corporatism. They agreed about where corporations are getting are utilizing loopholes that are in there. And listen, the loopholes are there. Then representatives fix those loopholes. But then it goes back to the point about that politicians, taking the money, doing the bidding of these giant corporations, not doing it for the good of the American people. unfortunately, right now, that's the way this system is. And until you get things like maybe term limits that will not allow people to stay in Congress for like 30, 40, 50 years and make it a life's career and enrich themselves on the backs of the American people by utilizing, their knowledge and insider knowledge, insider trading, whatever it is, like in the stock market for congressmen and senators and everything and people in government, that's going to continue. But now when she comes back and says that there are a lot of things that were free before or low cost, like public education, public schooling, especially colleges, true in a sense. But again, the question becomes is that as we've progressed as a society, what expenses are there? You got to meet payroll. You have much more teachers that are involved. You've got, custodial staff. You've got, buildings, land to buy. More people are going to colleges. If you're talking about previously, there weren't that many people going to college at that time compared to now. And I just have to ask Anna, who's going to pay the salaries of these professors? And some of these professors are making well north of $150,000, $200,000, especially when they're tenured at these very, even at the public schools, many of them are, in terms of, it's just a question of, again, who is going to pay for these things that you want to give free to? That's the question that has to be asked. So an overall, part 4, I think, was a wash, but Anna coming in at the very end, probably slightly, if you want to say, just because of her idiot, stupid answer in terms of just making everything free once again, that's just not going to happen. No way. Anyways, we appreciate you watching. This was a Politicon debate, part 4, between Tomi Lahren and Ana Kasparian, and you've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I've been your guest host. My name is Dr. Nasir. Like, share, and follow us. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. Let us know in your comments below what you think. Watch our other reaction videos of these Politicon debates as well. And I'll leave you with my final thought, which is, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. We'll see you again next time, folks. Take care and stay safe.